Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of How Would You Slice That? If you aren't familiar with the show, we try to balance some community time, getting to know a member of our 3D printing community with discussions on slicing strategies, tips, and tricks. And as always, on my Prime Tuesday, I'm spending it with Dr. Lawrence Nightingale.
Hey,
Hello.
Vicky, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, we got a little bit of snow out here and everything, and just getting over the Super Bowl. But doing good. Ready for a really exciting episode today, that's for sure.
That's good.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to? It's been 5 weeks
About
or
a month.
4 or
It's
5
been a month.
weeks since our last Prime Tuesday.
Yeah. I think I went into a little bit of withdrawal, first of all, but glad I made it through. The biggest thing I did is we had a friend of mine invited me over for a Super Bowl party, and I said, well, I'm just gonna see what's out there, that's appropriate for the Super Bowl, and I wound up finding a plethora of coasters, Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles coasters. The Kansas City coasters are not smaller on purpose, though. That is not a bias on my part, but found these coasters and showed up with them. I printed enough so that everybody at the party could pick their own coaster and root for their own team. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've done 3D printing wise this week. Since last we spoke. How about you? Anything interesting besides?
Not print-wise, but code-wise, I've been playing more with the Prusa slicer code, and last weekend I did my first pull request. Don't hold your breath. I don't know if it'll get in or if I made any embarrassing C++ errors, because it's been like decades since I've worked with C++, but I'm still really excited about that milestone. And awesome. Then I think our last episode, we were talking about the 1440 Makers fundraiser, and that was a resounding success. They not only hit their goal, they hit 3 different stretch goals and raised a lot of money for the World Central Kitchen.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so thank you for everyone who participated with that and donated. Just fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was a great event.
One last little banter, on the 1440 Makers during the parents panel, I mentioned that one of my sons was doing a science fair project on 3D printing and air quality. He won in school. So that was we were just doing it because there was something we were legitimately curious about, and it turned out it resonated with the judges as well.
Wow, that is awesome. Yeah, I thought, from my perspective as an educator, I thought it was a really well-designed experiment. And he had a really great idea about what he wanted to follow. And I think that he's well-deserved success. Way to go.
Yeah. Unfortunately, now there's more work because he has to, prepare for regionals now. But
oh boy. and then maybe the states, in which you'll have to do a lot more driving with that.
We'll see.
But one step at a time. At a time. Yes, indeed. Well, good. Well, I think I'm ready to introduce our guest.
Go for it.
This week. This week we've got Daniel from Kaizen 3D Prints, hailing from Portland, Oregon. So no snow for him today. But we are seeing I saw Daniel's content online, videos and TikToks and things like that. What I picked up on is that we're seeing so many people join the 3D printing community in the last, say, 2 years. And they're picking up some of the ideas that we have maybe needed to have more contributors kind of get in on. Daniel from Kaizen 3D saw the same things that we saw several years ago, printing on fabric. A wonderful idea that was brought into reality about 5 or 6 years ago. That I saw it for the first time at the East Coast Rep Rap Festival, and I was super impressed. And so Kaizen has taken, Daniel has taken fabric 3D printing to an entirely new level. His goal is to use budget-friendly printers to push the limits of textiles and fashion. And so with the ultimate goal of reducing waste by encouraging 3D production of just what is needed, just enough. And so his combination of vision with technology and passion is how 3D printing will find itself as a major contributor to our digital future. Daniel's designs feature multi-materials, original design, high fashion accessories, his own line of magnetic print bed sheets called P-flats, and what seems to be an unlimited imagination for 3D printing. And I am so happy to introduce Daniel of Kaizen 3D as a guest that will make you say, wow. Welcome, Daniel, from Kaizen 3D Prints.
Yes.
Holy moly, what an introduction. I need that recorded to wake up to every morning. That just got me out of my chair. I'm so jazzed up to be here. Thank you so much for the introduction and hosting this wonderful podcast. Thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. We really are looking forward to having a conversation with you. Yeah, so like tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into 3D printing.
Totally. And I'm going to try to keep it as short and sweet, but with enough information. First thing you got to know about me is I was an exchange student to France, and I lived there for a year, so I speak fluent French.
All right.
And when I was 16, that really pushed me into breaking out of my comfort zone and challenging what my thought processes were. At that point, I had a little business that was like a landscaping business. I would go and mow lawns and do some, tree plantings. Got back from France. I started working at a company called Trader Joe's. And shortly after that, then I was promoted. So I was the youngest manager in the history of Trader Joe's at 19 years old. And I opened up a store in Salem, Oregon that was about an hour and a half away from my home. So moved down there. That was Corvallis. Moved down there. Over the following several years, I made my way back up to Beaverton, which is my hometown, Portland, Oregon. Was happy to be here. Got my house 14 years ago, and that's one enabler of being able to have my workshop in my home is converting my garage into this workshop and converting the enclosed patio into another workshop. So thankful that I have my space here and that I'm not having the commute. So I did Trader Joe's for 15 years. And then I became a massage therapist, also working out of my home. I did that for 8 years. And then I started this 3D printing journey. I started that March of 2023 when I became like a business. And we did our first market at the Tiger Music Festival. And we were selling, dragons. And I had my 3D printer down there. I had my 3D scanner. I was scanning people and showing people how much fun 3D printers were. And I think August of 2023, I had one of my massage clients ask me if I could print dragon claws onto her daughter's gloves so she could be like Catwoman for Halloween. And that took me down the rabbit hole of printing on fabric, which I came across David Shorey. And if you're familiar with David Shorey, he did a lot of the earlier tutorials on printing on fabric. And I took that base idea of additive manufacturing on mesh. Fabulous. There's David.
Yeah.
So
probably where you saw it, Lawrence. This is IRF of 2018.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. And so those dragon scales, that was his, I took those and I modified them in a variety of ways. That was the first thing that I printed. I made a video and printing on fabric. I made a little necklace for my dog, and I did a variety of different print on mesh examples. And I woke up the next morning and it had 1.5 million views. And I had on my Instagram, I had like 65 followers. I think that when I went to bed, and I woke up and I had maybe 500 followers. And I thought, like, what is this whole thing with printing on fabric? And I was looking to what the next thing was, and I didn't necessarily want to continue printing dragons. I like the idea that printers can do things while we're not actively working, as long as we're, making the code right, etc. So then I transitioned pretty much fully into just what kind of fabric can we print on? What materials can we, the question that I was given in the beginning, I printed the square dragon scales. And sewists would look at me and they'd say, well, what can you do with that? You can't sew over the dragon scales, and it's a square. So how do you make that into a fashion, something, or an accessory? And that's when I began the Tinkercad route, which then led me into a little Fusion, which then led me into what I'm using now fully, which is Shaper 3D, and that's the only 3D design software that I use. So with that, I'm trying to I'm in here like 12 hours a day. This is when you said passion, it's my passion for fashion, and it is my need for problem solving. I'm creating problems to solve, and I just find it so fascinating of what I can do. And I do have a little bit of that those ADHD tendencies where if something, especially if it's shiny, it catches my attention. So all of these things that I've printed, it's like, how can I not be printing them?
They have to come into existence.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So you've got my Thangs. This is one of the originals. So this is the dragon scale, and then I've made that into a variety of things. This is probably one of my favorites. This is the first pattern that I used that had both the dragon scales and this hexagon pattern. And let me get the camera. So this is printed with a tricolor filament. That's what I went down the rabbit hole of tricolor filaments for about 3 or 4 months, and just changing the bottom layer pattern of how that can affect how the color gradient comes out and the multitude of patterns, how those can react to UV lights. And I think that's a good one, So
yeah,
all the different potentials. I think this was one of the first things that I sewed. And this is 3 prints on the backside. I use a UV curable resin. So problem solving, what can I do to link these panels seamlessly together when I just have a build plate of 256 by 256? Same thing here, where this is 4 individual prints that I've then attached together here at the center seam. But then when you add a lining to it, it's hardly visible.
Right.
So that's what the goal was, to create the smaller pieces that you can print on. Here, I'm pointing the wrong direction.
That's all right.
Print on these, affordable printers and be able to make some cool stuff for cosplay or high fashion or all the different things. This is another dragon scale.
Oh my God.
And this, I'm going to pop this off here.
Oh, wow. And you can see through that.
Yeah, and because this is on a mesh, I can totally see through it. I think my eyes are turning the right
I
direction.
think I'll go ahead and get a screenshot of this.
This is awesome. Yeah, and so now on your website, on your Thangs, do you offer those tips like the resin curing and stuff like that for putting together the panels?
Yeah,
well?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I can. Let's see. I thought that I had that. They're on. So if you go to my Thangs, and I think you had that popped up. And I'm just laughing at myself, watching myself. It's hilarious. So I've got to swap it.
That's awesome.
Get this back on there. So on my Thangs, I have free files, and there's a free fabric file that when you download that file, you get the PDF. So up at the top, the very top, the purple grid.
Yeah.
The 5 patterns for fabric.
5 patterns for free.
Yeah. So if you download that, you're going to get a PDF that has. So that's the bottom layer pattern of just changing it from octagram spiral to Archimedean chords, Hilbert curve, etc. So these are just 5 samples, just patterns that people can print. So what I've had an epiphany over the last couple of days, which has been another game changer in this whole part of it, is using negative modifiers.
I saw that.
To change the portion inside of the slicer without having to have the need for a 3D slicing or for a 3D CAD software. So, for example, I had a follower send me a message yesterday. He's taken the hexagon grid, the second from the top, and he's used my negative part modifiers, which are also available on my Thangs account. And he's printing a bucket hat. So this exactly. So he took the circle and he made it the size of his bucket hat. And then he printed that in a glow in the dark. And then he created his own negative modifiers for the brim that he's printing. So it just opens up a whole new customizable aspect of printing just what you want and being able to sew it, because this creates a seam allowance that's exactly what you need. You don't have to sew over anything else.
Wow.
So once we slice this, then you see all the negative parts are removed. And then, yeah, only the orange would print. And I think at the end of this video, I showed that example. So
yeah. Now, Daniel, are you also using negative modifiers to do the intermediate step where you print and then you put the fabric down?
That's all. So I have a print that's set up right now that's paused, and I think it has 18 minutes left.
Okay.
I should have gotten a new print up there, but let me see. Oh, this is the example. So we can look at this if you share my screen here. So this is that Einstein tile that you had shown originally. And this is the negative modifier that I took. I just made a text. Let me pull that up. I think that was just in this, where I just made a text.
Sweet.
And I exported it as an STL. Okay.
In
so just
Tinkercad.
How we slice it in Tinkercad. Yep. And then in here, this is my file that I've created, the pattern. And the height of this generally, I'm going to delete this. That's saying that's the overall height is 15 millimeters. So this height I set generally to 0.72 millimeters, which is 3 layers at 0.24 millimeter layer height.
Oh, fast.
Usually, so the trick is whatever fabric you're printing on, your layer height needs to be equal to or greater than that thickness. So there's no snagging. There's no Z offset. So most of my meshes that I print on, the illusion mesh is 0.2 millimeters and the power mesh is 0.24. So generally, I just, as a basis, I print at 0.24 millimeter layer height. Because my things aren't really tall, I don't need the layer height definition, the fine detail that 0.08 layer height might give me.
Right.
So when I slice this, we're going to get the the G code here. And this is where I would add the pause. So as long as this is the pause command. In the first, this is the first layer. On the right-hand side, we can drag this bar up to show what layer we're on.
Mm-hmm.
I would click that and add that pause in the beginning of layer 2, where the print would pause, the tool head would go off to the side, you'd lay your fabric down in magnets,
right.
And then the print would resume. So that's where we're at now, where I've laid the fabric down and the print's at a pause. I'm going to take the camera over and we can go look at it. I'll hit the print button. And then at the end of the podcast, then we'll pull it off and we can see the effect that's given.
That'd be wonderful.
So let's go back to this here. Oops, sorry.
That's all right. No.
Okay.
It's kind of like on brand with Einstein tiles. They'll repeat forever. And so
absolutely.
The fractal of StreamYard screens.
Okay, so we've got the printers, and I have to give a shout out to Bamboo, because their printers they're phenomenal. I have got the P1S here. I've got a couple A1 combos down there. I have P1Ps, P1S up there, and then an X1C. All AMS units. So for those that aren't familiar with the AMS units, we can link up 4 of these individual units to get up to 16 colors on the same print.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I have my 2 end printers, this one right here, and Reese that's on the way far side. I named them all after my nieces and nephews, so I can help them. So if one's in the doghouse or in trouble, so so this is Jude. So we've got the negatives part there, and I can't zoom in anymore. But when I write, and we can go back there and show you that modifier, I have my 4-way, my superfine power mesh. And I use these bar magnets, these 60 millimeter by 10 millimeter by 3 millimeter magnets, just to hold that tension around. Once I have the frame, then I can pull the fabric a little bit just to create that, again, the tension that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we can just resume the print. And that nozzle is just going to go, well, I think about halfway, we can see that color change, like this portion. But because the thickness, the layer height is equal to the fabric, we don't have to do any offset, and it's there's no snagging. It works out pretty pristinely. Yeah. So if you're working with thicker fabric, you might want to bump up your nozzle to like a 0.6 or a 6 millimeter, 0.6 millimeter or 0.8, change your layer height.
Wow. And so, everybody can appreciate, the repeating patterns printed on fabric. But one of those really one of the cooler things I've seen on there is you've got like a clutch that is like based on an origami design.
Ooh,
yeah, a couple of them. And I have the flat design. Actually, I didn't get that out. This is my. I don't know if you can still see me back here. Oh yeah, and you can pull that up too. Absolutely. You have the power.
Yeah.
This is super cool. Yeah, anybody would love to have a night on the town with this clutch here.
And that's the customizable. That takes 2 hours and 15 minutes to print.
Stop.
And maybe like 30 minutes of assembly.
Really?
Yeah, no sewing. It's magnets, right? Magnets.
Yeah, no sewing. It's all magnetic and glue. I use E6000. So the prints themselves. These are some, for example, that I have printed but not made yet. Mm-hmm. So they stick together because of the magnets.
Uh-huh.
Here we get this is an orange, green, blue with an Archimedean chords bottom layer printed on I think this is Skynet, the P flat sheet.
Uh-huh.
And then
okay.
I haven't trimmed any of this fabric away yet. And the magnets are embedded into the top portion. So beautiful. There's a posit layer 2 to put the fabric down, and there's a posit layer 14 to then put the magnets in that encloses it. So then you make a couple cuts, and that's all of my files have PDF instructions on how to create them.
Beautiful. Really?
And then when that flips around, then that is just, closed like that. My personal one that I use is...
Whoa.
It's this one. It's a square grid clutch. So I have a couple different designs on there. Mm-hmm. And then this has like a tie-dye.
Liner.
Which is also UV reactive. So you can line it with whatever you want. So that's another customizable thing. Mm-hmm. I've seen some really awesome, takes on it. So,
I was just sitting here, Daniel, a second ago, and really we got to get the word out about you probably a lot faster than we need to. Than we probably thought, because I'm sitting here thinking somebody's going to try to sell this. Like somebody somewhere else is going to try to go ahead and sell this. Not pointing at Daniel, but we definitely need to get the word out, because I like the idea. Like what you're talking about is, not it's almost it's fast fashion, but it's sustainable at the same time, right?
Yeah, I think here I'm thinking in like 2 years. How do I want to say this? When I started 2 years ago, there were like 3 or 4 dragon models. Yeah. And now they're
everywhere.
They're everywhere. So right. I'm hoping that's part of my hope is that I'm encouraging others to create designs that they want and they can use. So I am what I try to be the farthest from the gatekeeper of, I answer every message. If you have a question on how to do it, I'm not going to say this is my proprietary, because anybody can do it. I'm not, I get 10 messages a day, emails of, hey, let's patent this and let's, prevent other people from doing this. And like, that's completely detracts from the purpose of what I'm trying to do, of creating the 3D printing community or joining the 3D printing community and inspiring others to not just have this be the dragons and the, there are a lot of other things that I don't mean to just, keep talking about that, but there's definitely, I think, much more potential than we're realizing. And
absolutely. I would agree with that. And the potential that we're not realizing, it seems to me that your holographic build plates are another aspect of kind of thinking outside the box. Like I think,
and I want to mention just one thing on that, because you introduced me as the designer of the magnetic P flat sheet, and that's not. I'm a reseller for Tom. Tom is he's added these magnetic backings to it. So maybe about a year ago, I had one of my followers reach out and say, hey, you got to get in contact with this guy. Tom, he's one of the original designers and creators of this before Temu and Amazon and all the stickered versions kind of, got wind of it. So what I've done now is I was paying, the full retail from him. And originally, I said, hey, what if I buy like 10 of these and resell them? Can you give me a deal for them? And, can I buy them at cost basically? So the minimum order was much higher than I thought, but I went ahead and I did it because I want to enable, again, other people to print. So today I got in 4 new patterns, bigger sizes. I got some in for the 360 by 360. So K2 Plus can use them, and I have some bigger ones that are 420 by 420. So I like that outlook. I too like to contribute to the community. Yeah, I'm not trying to hold anything back. So
wonderful.
That said, I do need to pay my house, my mortgage and groceries and electricity and all that stuff.
Subscribe to the Thangs.
Yeah, I waited for my Thangs members and I have multiple revenue streams as for like fashion designers that reach out, they want one-off pieces. That might only happen once every other month. Yeah, it's a good chunk of money, but then what do you do when that money is not coming in? So it's the Thangs members, the models that I upload, and I thank them every day because without them, I wouldn't be able to, be doing this, having this conversation with you. Transitioning into this full time was really scary, and I want to still give back to the community as much as I can. So with that said, we did have another idea, and my wife has been working on it very hard. There's the 3D printer side of it, where if you have a 3D printer, you can get my models. There are, I think, over my social media, I think I have maybe 130,000 followers. Oh, there are a lot of those people that do not have 3D printers, and they will not ever get 3D printers. They just want the shiny things. They just want the things that I make.
Sure.
It's difficult for me to have the iron in all the different fires of sales and marketing and social media and shipping and production and design and cleaning and sleeping and eating and all those things. So what my wife and I came up with is there's a separate website called Ko-fi, Ko-fi. And I think I have it loaded up on mine.
Okay, good. I was trying to get it.
Okay, here's this. If you want to pop my screen up. And this will be so it's ko-fi.com/Kaizen 3D prints. These are for the people that are just for that don't have 3D printers. And there are 3 different membership tiers. So what I want to do is do like raffles once a month. Oh. So if you're a member and you want to support my growth, cost of filament, printers, etc., you can spend $5 a month, and every month I'll give away something of this value, whether it be buttons or hoop earrings, party favorite boxes, etc.
Wow.
Then you have the stellar supporters, $10 a month. And that ups the chance of, hey, you might get a houndstooth ski cap like the one I'm wearing, the dragon scale bracer, a couple of things, and you get access to my Discord, so you can kind of be a part of my Discord community there. Wonderful. And then for the super fan, this is you love what I do and you can't wait to support me. This is the higher end stuff, so not the magnetic closure clutch, but the next level up of clutch that I have, and custom commission work. So then we can work one-on-one together if you win that raffle. So this is just another potential way for me to get that little bit of support that might keep me going. I don't know what is going to happen in 6 months, or, I'll do this just as long as I can. And I'm just thankful to be a part of the community. And I do this because there have been people that have reached out and they want to support me, but there's no way for them to, they can join my Thangs, but there's no benefit to that.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, they can join your Thangs, but they would just be looking at a bunch of pictures of Thangs.
Yeah. And there have been people that have purchased the models and they're expecting it in the mail, like, hey, I bought this model last week. Where is it? And it's that's not like, let me differentiate this. This is for my physical copies on my website versus these are the models if you want to print it yourself.
Right.
So to answer to you had that question of how we need to get me out there faster than we can. That's how we can get me out there faster, is by supporting those pages and getting my name out there, so I can still be that person to help everybody in the community, and still
keep your sanity.
Keep my sanity. Yeah, not stress about if my electrical bill is going to be paid next month. So,
Wow.
yeah.
You know, it's amazing that, I mean, I'll ask one question, then make sure that you jump into, because I don't want to take anything away from you getting to ask a question either, Vicky. But you know, one thing that I've been thinking about is that you mentioned like your first foray into 3D printing was 2 years ago. You got your first 3D printer almost 3 years ago.
Yep.
And the first time that you went and sold something, you were scanning and printing. You're scanning and printing people, you know, on the spot. And what is funny about that is that I feel like such like a dinosaur, because that was like the pinnacle of the technology when I first got into it. It was for a really long time, and there you were, you know, doing it as you probably would have considered yourself to be an amateur at the time.
Absolutely. I didn't know what, I mean, I kind of knew what I was doing, but not really. I was following the other guys on YouTube and Instagram and, you know, seeing what they were doing and learning from them.
I mean, yeah. And so what I think about like the way that like technology sometimes just like all of a sudden it's like really, really small and minuscule, and then it just kind of explodes onto the scene. I think that story, that vignette that you just talked about, you know, being able to really just start off like at a high level is really indicative of 3D printing doing some really spectacular things going forward. So yeah, I'm glad you shared that story. Vicky, what you got any questions? Did I skip
want to jump back a little bit because I was checking out your things page before, to prep for this episode. And I think you had some notes in there about speeds. And I think also it depended on your fabric type. I was hoping that maybe you'd speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, and I do kind of a touch base on both of those points. Bringing me back to my first 3D printer, the Ender 3V2, there was a lot of, for me, when I got that, I thought this was like the most technologically advanced printer that's out there, right?
Yeah.
And then I learned and started upgrading and started tinkering, and then things started failing, and then I couldn't get a good bed level, and I just got frustrated with it. And then a friend had sent me the Bamboo. I digress. I got an Ender Max Neo because I wanted to print a larger dragon that was for my wife's. Originally, it was a collection. I wanted to print a castle. My wife wanted me to print a castle and a couple things for a project that she had. So I got an Ender 3 Max Neo that was 300 by 300, and I loved it. It worked much better than the Ender 3V2, so I got 2 of them.
Oh.
And then I had to move. I had the one printer by my laundry machine. I moved into my little room that has I basically made like a 6 foot by 12 foot little cubby in my garage that could be insulated, that I made into an office where I had a couple of printers.
Good.
Then I fast forwarded to the Bamboo Labs P1S, or is the P1? Yeah, the P1P that I got first. And I the first time that started, I jumped out of my seat. I could not believe how fast it was. I mean, printing, it was like 250 millimeters a second. The Creality, I could barely get up to like 35 millimeters a second without failing. Mm-hmm. So immediately, I think then I bought 3 more, I think the following day.
Nice.
And knew, I just felt like maybe I waited until after that viral video. And then it was okay, I need to keep up with demand, because at the time, one square of dragon scales would take 14 hours to print.
What?
So when I had, and that was on a Bamboo Lab. So before knowing, I could change infill down to 0% and ensuring vertical wall thickness, and that could, maintain a good print, and dropped it down to maybe 10 hours of print. I think the second week of going viral, I had a fashion designer reach out to me, and she wanted to order a whole bunch of this fabric. I got so overwhelmed with it. That's when I kind of panicked a little bit. Like, this would take me 3 weeks to print just on my one printer. I need to get 3 more in order to complete this one order.
Awesome.
So once that order came, or the printers, I was just hooked on. It's so easy. But what I found is that just because it could print at 250 millimeters a second does not mean that you have to print at 250 millimeters a second.
Uh-huh.
My general rule of thumb, I still print at 35 millimeters a second for the first layer. And I always start with the 0.24 millimeter layer height, especially with the P-flat sheets. Number one comment I get with the sheets are I can't print on them. They get the sheets, the stickered versions from Amazon, Temu, Alibaba, etc., and they can't get anything to stick on there.
Yeah.
The things that can affect it, get any oils that are on there. So just a quick grab this here. I've had this print. I think I've printed on this maybe 350 times.
Wow.
Different, and it still has the same amount of shine. I have a couple pieces of tape here because the adhesive is starting to delaminate because I've used it so many times. But the effect, this has thousands of different micro grooves. So we're getting a light refracting pattern here. Mm-hmm. So anytime that the 3D printer is extruding material into the sheet, it's creating a duplicate copy. So when we remove it, it has a mirror effect of that bottom sheet.
Oh.
So it's important if you're trying to print at 0.08 millimeter layer height, there's not enough meat to extrude in all of those grooves.
Oh.
So I found that a thicker layer height, if you are experiencing problems with the sticker versions as well, to just increase your first layer height to 0.24 or 0.28 to get more squish in there before you start your actual print.
Wow. Okay.
So based on fabrics, and I have my other fabrics here, this is a good example of the layer speed. This is a model that you can get on my things. This is the sample. So there's petticoat tool, bridal veil tool, ultra tool, which is like my illusion mesh, and then 2-way and 4-way stretch. So we can see from this vertical that there's not a lot of movement here with those scales. Because the mesh grid is pretty wide, I can print fairly fast. So the max I would go with this is 100 millimeters a second.
That's the max?
I don't print anything faster than 100 millimeters a second with any fabric and any filament. I don't find any benefit from it because inevitably, if you're printing at 250 millimeters a second, you're going to knock over one of these and that ruins the print.
Okay. So
my rule of thumb is the more stretch you have, the slower it needs to be.
Ah.
So for an example, we have these two meshes, I think are, that's not even my super fine mesh. So we can see the mesh grid.
It's very.
Well, you can sense it's very fine.
Yeah.
Okay, and this other one,
okay.
this power mesh. When I found power mesh, I had people saying, "Well, you should try printing on poly mesh," and I had no idea that there was this material that you can have so much stretch to it.
And that's
but again,
4-way stretch?
I print slower. This is this is a 4-way stretch. It's a 95% polyester, 5% spandex.
Wow.
And this is before I found the super fine power mesh. That's I think 1% less spandex, and it's a thicker grid. So if I'm trying to hide the mesh, that's what I print on. If I have an example of that. Oh yeah, great. I'll just take this. So we have an illusion mesh. So if I want to see through something and have that transparent look, there's a whole bunch of different colors for that illusion mesh versus this. Paul, this is the super fine, so it's a little bit denser, but you have the stretchable aspect of it that you don't get with the illusion mesh. So, and with this, I print at 25 to 35 millimeters a second. I print very slow with this. Only the layers that are adjacent to the fabric. Anything above that, then I can speed up.
Wow.
Okay. Did that answer that question? I might have derailed that.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, and you talk to us a little bit about the benefits of this fourth dimension that you had mentioned to us.
Oh yeah, and that I don't know quite what the benefits will be yet. I had just and I love waking up to new followers sending me ideas. There's a brand. It's called Timeplast USA, and they have filaments that have entered the fourth dimension, time, where they have a filament that's intended to burn. They have a filament that is soap, so you can print your own bars of soap. It's an olive oil, something other blend. They have filaments that dissolve in water over short periods of time and long periods of time. I'm not sure quite how I'm going to incorporate this, but I wanted the filament just to try it out. And then the last one I got was one that gets, when you get it wet, then it gets sticky. So it's meant to, if you like print a cave, for example, you can get it wet and then throw sand on it, and the sand will stick to the 3D print.
Wow.
So my hope is that I can wet the backside of it, and the bond will be great enough that it will adhere to clothing or potentially skin, you know, if it's like for rave wear or something like that. And there's 0 microplastics.
Wow.
So
there's an outfit out in I think it's Denmark that prints with recycled paper. Have you seen that yet? That
recycled paper.
Yeah, cellulose.
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
Oh God, it's awesome.
Okay, great.
Well, I'll send you a link. But
yeah.
There was a really good technical question that Brian came up with.
Yeah.
You see that one, Vicky?
Oh yeah, let me throw it up on here.
Oh,
is that the one you're thinking of, Lawrence?
Yes.
Yeah. So how/what are the settings in Bamboo Slicer to set the different speeds for each level?
Yeah, and we can go into the slicer real quick, and I can show these settings.
All right.
So we can make it happen. Is my screen up? Am I good to go?
You are good to go.
Okay, great. So this is my 0.24 fabric printing, and if I go to a normal setting, like just a starting at 0.2, I'll just show you what I would change in order to make it fabric printing settings.
Okay.
So in that initial quality, I would change this initial layer height to 0.24 and my layer height to 0.24. I also changed the line width of the initial layer to 0.42. That's just, I found on some of my internal walls with some of my models, it creates just a little bit better definition. So keep that initial layer 0.42. Then I go down here to wall generator to Arachne. Changes it from classic to Arachne. So classic would keep that 0.42 all the way across the board, where with Arachne wall generator, that wall width will vary depending on what gaps it needs to fill up. So those are the only changes that I make there. In the strength tab, I hate grid, so I usually always just set this to 0%.
Okay.
Generally, we're not printing anything greater than, well, most of the time I'm only printing with 3 layers, so there's no infill anyway. It acts as the bottom shell layer or top shell layer. So on this bottom surface pattern, this is one thing that I love changing. It's set to monotonic. Yeah. The things that will really give you a fun design, the octagram spiral, Archimedean chords, Hilbert curve, and concentric are the 4 that I really like. So I'll change that bottom surface pattern. Then coming over to the speed section, then initial layer speed, this initial layer, this gets set to 35, and the initial layer infill is 35. If you're not seeing these, you have to have the advanced tool mark checked. Right now, the speed does not come up. So we'll go back to the speed. Then the other layers speed. If I'm printing with a silk filament that I want that high shine on the walls, I'll just change this all to 50. Generally, this is my rule of thumb, is all speed set to 50, my gap infill set to 50. And that's my general printing, both on Illusion Mesh. Most of my Power Mesh, unless I need it to be like really fine detail and I'm not worried about the time. Again, it's going to cut off like a couple of minutes. It's not a real great, you're not saving a lot of time by bumping this up to 150 or keeping it at that original speed.
Okay.
Down here, you can have this, the travel speed, and the acceleration. If you have issues with snagging, so I keep
that did come up earlier, yeah.
With snagging, yeah. So because bamboos, they can go so fast, 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds. Sometimes that acceleration will just catch one portion of that fabric, whereas if it's going slowly, that fabric will have a time to kind of reset into its position. So with that, I'll just drop this down all in half as a 2500. Same thing, top service as 1000. So those are my speed settings.
Right.
And then support, I don't do anything. And I often don't print with a prime tower. So I'll often remove this prime tower because my prints are maxing out the build plate, and I'll either increase my purge volume or I'll print another something over in the corner, like a little fidget thing, purge into infill. So I don't throw any of my filament poops away. I keep them all. I remelt them down, recycle them, and make them into little things. So I have not thrown one single scrap of filament away in the last 2.5 years that I've been doing this.
That's impressive.
So,
well, good for you. Good for
and then there was one more thing. If this was backtracking maybe 20 minutes ago, taking this file, right-clicking, adding a negative part, and loading. And then we're going to load I think this is the text. Negative part, fabric pattern. And I didn't label these, of course. I think that's that one. Okay. Well, this one's up here. I just don't know what file I put it in. So you can then move this negative part to wherever you want on the pattern. So again, super customizable in a lot of different ways. Did that answer the speed question?
Yeah. Would you take a detour back to the quality settings again?
Quality. You got it. Yeah. And then I can scroll down.
And I guess, Daniel, I mean, the truth of the matter is that now that you've been on How Would You Slice That, your quality settings either are already on your things profile, or you can post them so that when people subscribe to things, they can know exactly how to print the speeds it need.
Absolutely. So every file has a 3MF file built into it. So you can download those files, and then all those parameters will automatically pop up. So
wonderful. And I think the biggest thing in answering that question is that you don't change speeds before versus after the mesh. You have the same speed all the way through.
Yeah, again, unless I'm printing something that's way taller, right? I want to bump up the speed, but then I'll just go to the printer and I'll say, hey, print 124% faster, or even if it's a ludicrous mode, that 160% faster, it's still only 150% faster than 50 millimeters a second. So you're still only going to 75 millimeters. So it's not really that much.
You're not saving that much. You're not saving a ton of time. You're not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. So did that answer questions with the slicer? Could I pop back out of that? And
I think you did. Yeah,
looks like it did. Cool. Hey, but while you're there, you can. Some people are late coming. You can talk about what that pattern is.
Oh yeah, so this is the Einstein tile, and I didn't know until another follower actually sent me a message that in order for these to actually be an aperiodic pattern, that these have to be flipped over. That they won't. So this pattern is both the inverse, the mirrored object. How do I explain that? Instead of like a lot of my patterns that are the same thing, the horizontal, you have 20 of them and there's a minimum spacing, and the vertical. This, we can pair this piece in any different connection point. So I printed out actually a couple of them and I didn't get around to sewing them. Let me pop my camera back on here.
Okay, here, let me pop it off.
Yeah, here they are. I think I have my big one too. So I just got a whole bunch of bamboo silk filaments that are the Silk Plus. Mm-hmm. So I took a heart pattern that I made, and then I took the negative modifier of the Einstein tile, and I made I made different tiles of these hearts. So then I'll be able to cut out the seam allowance and then combine them and create an outfit that is, incorporating those pieces that fit together.
Wow.
So it really was an interesting, it's like originally when they had no idea that they didn't have the information that this pattern existed. And now that it does exist, there's an infinite amount of other shapes that can also be an Einstein tile. It's just fascinating. So this was the one that I already did in.
Yeah.
And this is when you mentioned the company from Denmark, this company is also from Denmark. This is Reflow filament, and this is made with 98% recycled plastic.
Oh.
So this, I have their candy collection, and it's their 6 different colors. So here we have the How Would You Slice It with that Inception P-flat sheet.
Wow.
So they remind me of candy hearts, the colors of the candy hearts.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes.
Very on brand for Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
We had like the mosaic. So this is another pattern that I did, a little butterfly, and this can be shrunk down. So I have, that was the blue one that I showed you that I'm making a clutch for. So this is the outline of the clutch that has the little snap fasteners. Lots of different things. There was there a question that was asked? What was I going to show?
You were talking about speed for
while
a second.
You're thinking of that, can I ask you, like, how do you cut your seam allowances on, like, say there's the Hart Einstein tiles? How would you?
So that I am printing up a basically like a stencil that was an offset of 12 millimeters from the pattern that I printed. So then I'll just line up the stencil over the fabric itself.
Got it.
And then cut that. I got a sewing machine last year, and I'm still kind of learning again on, how things go together and French seams and side stitches and all that stuff. So originally when I had like this hat, for example, get the hat hair, everything too. These had little snap fasteners on it. So I wanted the ability to you can have a hat, and then if you want a different hat, then you just print it, sew it up, and then snap it on there.
Nice.
So originally when I did the dragon scales, that Spider-Man or the Deadpool, that just fits directly onto this beanie, just using that same outline.
Wow.
So I've got a couple different, I think this was the very, very first one that was extra shiny, and it had some hexagons that I kind of flattened out. And then that's before I went to houndstooth, the houndstooth direction.
Yeah, houndstooth is that much more fancy.
Say that one more time.
I said the houndstooth is that much more fancy, substantially more fancy.
Yeah, that much fancy. And I my favorite part is, I don't know if I can flip this off. I'm a big fan of everything. I wouldn't say optical illusion, but like things that aren't what they seem.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the first
very
glow
nice.
in the dark houndstooth that I did.
Nice.
That's got a pretty big pattern to it. So I made a big one. I'll wander over here, and I'm getting sidetracked. I do apologize, but I just get so excited with.
Oh wow!
So this is like a big example, and this is 9 pieces that are put together. This is when I was just learning about the slicer and about how do I attach things, and this has a very similar. It's all glow in the dark pattern too. So you see that pattern originally, but you really see it with
the dimension with the color now.
Yeah. So with the lights, that'd be a different experience. The hope was, you have a fashion show and you have normal lights in 1 second, and then the lights flip to UV and you have a completely different outfit or a different design.
Oh, very cool.
That nature. So whether it's glow in the dark or some other 4-dimensional.
That sounds like a good Project Runway challenge.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm working with Di Young. She lives in Portland, coming up with some fun things. Here's
Who's
another
project alumni, a Project Runway alumni. I think what season 18?
Now I forget. It was the one that just aired. Yeah, it was season 18, I believe. This is one more example of and I just love this filament. This is color changing with UV. So we get the white, and then as soon as we get the UV incorporated, it will.
And it stays.
Yeah, it stays for about 3 minutes. And then we get it's kind of an optical illusion pattern with the white and the black there. Same thing. So you can have a different side to it. Yeah, secret messages.
Whoa.
So I'm really intrigued by the whole color shifting aspect and additive manufacturing on mesh and yeah.
Wow.
What other what questions? Where are we going? I just have this too that I'm ready to pull off.
All right, yeah, let's see what you got there.
I'm getting sidetracked. So again,
and can you repeat what filament that was with the UV?
That was I was originally Plasport. They were 2 months out or something with ordering, so I went to Micro Center. So Micro Center has 2 of them. They're $19.99 for 500 gram spools, and there's a white to purple and a white to red. It's quite magical.
And then just to clarify, the big larger pieces, you are doing like one print bed and then you're sewing them together.
It depends on what it is. So with some I'm sewing, with some I'm doing a UV curable resin. This example, that's a bad example. Let's get this example. That's what I'm looking for. So this is a skirt that I made for my wife for Christmas.
I saw that.
This is, I think, 2 years ago. And I have the lining that I just pre-measured from her skirt that she already had. And then I had this. Let me flip this upside down. So this is 18,000 squares, I think. And there's 8 different panels. So the top is 4 pieces and the bottom is 4. And here you can see the seam, if you can see it. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I see where it is.
Right here. Okay, so that's done with the UV curable method where I trim off all of the fabric on one and I leave an edge to flip over and to cure onto the other one. So, and that's just done with like a jewelry type of UV curable resin and a UV light. So it's pretty accessible. Just make sure you have ventilation, wearing a mask type of thing, the normal resin protocols.
Yeah, no kidding.
This one was a little bit more difficult. There's a show called a movie Elemental, and Ember is one of the characters. She's a fire sprite, fire elemental, and I was trying to recreate her sweatshirt that she wears. So this is a burnt titanium filament that goes from blue to kind of a purple with the the viewpoint. So I wanted to, this was just the sweatshirt. I kind of took apart one. I wanted them to be, still printable. I think this is 5 or 6 different print plates and then resin together. So same principle.
Same idea. Okay, cool. Man. It's
exciting.
So, yeah, let's see that. Let's see what your print.
So this is
earlier.
Again, yeah, we paused this earlier. This is just with one color. This is a tricolor from 3D Hojor. And it's black, red, and gold. I believe I did a special bottom layer. This is with the new P-flat sheet that I got. This is called Opposite. It's got these arrows that go back and forth on it. So I've only printed, I think,
so kind of an optical illusion.
Yeah, a little bit. They've got some good, some cubes and gyroids. So as we pull it off, let's see if I can angle this. You get that nice holographic finish to it.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get the arrows on there.
Beautiful.
This. So then, because we mirrored it, then the text comes through.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's sweet.
Screenshot that.
Yeah.
And so this was awesome. An hour and 40 minutes, I think, to print. What? So, again, it's, you can sew this on a shirt. You have the seam allowance built in there. So I'd love to get some bigger printers. I got the K2 Plus. I'm looking for the Orange Storm Giga. I'd like to get some larger pieces in there. Before this example, this is 2 pieces, and you can see the center seam. I think I made this a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
Whereas now with my other printers, the Peopoly behind me, I can do one long sheet that's, I think, a 30 centimeter by 40 centimeter swatch. So yeah, it's just the whole movement of it and the feel of it. It's a totally different experience than just looking at it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, and then you incorporate that in another. My brain is going.
Well, you just got a compliment in the chat. Someone says they love how your brain works. So nourish that brain.
You didn't want to sew them, dude. The stuff you come up with is so inspiring. It's magical how your brain works. Awesome. Yeah, because I didn't know how to sew, and there were a lot of sewists that told me that that it was not possible to sew through the dragon scales and to sew through the materials. And then I said, why not? So that's when I got my own sewing machine, and I tried 6 different needles. You can sew through it if it's, again, 3 layers. Before I was doing 4 layers at 0.96. That was too thick, and I broke quite a few needles. So I switched it back down to the 0.72 max. And then you can still sew through it with TPU2 or Flex PLA.
Wow.
There was, let's see, sewing. Where there was another something that.
So another question from the chat is, how well do these handle the wash?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I did a reel maybe a year and a half ago. I need to repost it. So I've washed all of my things. This has been in the washing machine probably 15 times. In the dryer, you can do low heat. Generally, I just hang things to dry.
Very good point.
I haven't had, I think the only damage that I've gotten on this hoodie is because when I'm sitting on the couch and I kind of fold it over a little bit, that's the only wash. I have nothing's ever come off. They are, I mean, they're through it. They're durable. Yeah. So I've tested them in garment bags, in full loads of laundry, with jeans, with blankets in there. Put it on there in a full load in the dryer on medium heat and still nothing. So high heat, I probably wouldn't do it, but I've had no issues with it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow. And one thing when you were talking about putting your speed together and everything, I needed to give kudos to your either your hairdresser or your genetics or both, because you've got all your hair after going through all of those trial and error, the speeds and stuff. No, it'd be hard to handle that. You are a very, very focused person.
Well, I'm out here again, like I said, 12 hours a day. I found. If I can share just a brief story on.
Oh, of course, yeah.
One of the members in my Discord said, I have a little area for ideas. So if you have an idea you want me to design, then you put it up there and I'll kind of tinker away at it. Somebody wanted a fan, like a foldable fan that you could open up and you could fan yourself. So I started making something just with just a circle, and this is a pattern, so 36 different segments. I wanted to see how it would pleat together and how it would fold. And the spacing was just it was too tight. I think this is at 0.6 and it needed to be 0.8 or maybe, yeah. Oh yeah, brilliant. You are in here. Awesome. So you'll see where this has gone. So it turned from the fan going from this portion to then I think I changed the internal diameter to see how it folded. This is just on a black on like a gyro or a Escher pattern is the new one that I had. So this one folds up really nicely, like so. But it's not structural enough. So when you open it up, I mean, you still have it, but you can't
hold it.
You have to hold it, right? So I think there were just too many lengths. So that went from prototype to then me thinking, well, what if I made something that could spin? And this is my brain that just went from one direction into a totally different one. I used the Bamboo Lab silk plus filaments. They're 8. And then I put a little finger hole in the back because I thought originally that my nephews would love to put this on their finger and then just like have it be a fidget, but not a fidget type of thing. Just a cloth.
No, that's definitely a fidget.
Something. So then after a while I was spinning it and I wanted it to go faster. So I thought, okay, well, what if we add a bearing or something inside of it? So that's when my brain went to, okay, we get this little bearing. And here, let me actually pop it open. Transfer my screen over to the Shaper, the screen share, and you can see what I'm talking about. So is it up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, brilliant. So this is just some of the patterns that I was working with, a couple iterations. And then I went over here to create this shell so the bearing would sit inside of it. And then this portion would encapsulate the bearing inside of this creation, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward to that printing. I'm going to switch back to my camera here. So I had all these iterations with little pegs in the middle, finding out what the clearance was. Then I got one and I encapsulated it. So the bearing is inside of it.
Uh-huh.
And then I did because the bearing, let me get this out here. Shaper, I love Shaper 3D. It's the best. I got to get a pair of pliers here. Okay. And then, or maybe I don't. I'm just going to keep it in there. Okay. So then I printed this, which is just a metallic silver filament.
Mm-hmm.
I printed a peg that once the bearing was set in there, that peg stays still. So the peg can rotate itself. And then I can just spin this and have it be a whatever. So
that's a laminar flow fan. That's a laminar flow fan.
So then I was doing this with it and seeing all the different it just reminded me of all the centrifugal force projects that I did as a kid, as as it would lower down and slowly. So then I thought, well, I need to make a top with this now.
Oh,
I don't know if you can see how well this spins, but let me see if I can. Let's see. Where can you see it? Here.
Okay.
Okay, that was a bad one. Hold on. That was a bad. Well, it's spinning. It's like.
Okay.
I was playing around with this for 15 minutes before the podcast, and now I'm just flying it too far.
That's all right.
So I want to add a top to a little part to it. So anyway, where we go from the fan, I'm still working on the fan, but my brain has then gone to this thing and maybe making like one of those little mesmerizing hypnotic things that would be fun. A great wheel for raffle giveaways. Absolutely. That's when I saw this one, I was reminded by the little raffle spinner that I use.
Wow.
So anyway, that's where the latest project was. It's just go into Shaper, make a couple changes, print something up, and then go back to doing something else.
Well, yeah.
Laminar flow.
Laminar flow.
Absolutely.
If you have time, we're over our hour. We have a few more questions if you're.
Oh, yeah. I'm here for the night.
Okay.
You just cut me off whenever. Is there ever an application where you would or could use the non-mesh side of the fabric? Is there ever an application where you would or could use the non-mesh side of the fabric?
On the top of
the top of the print. Is it still holographic? I think so. I'll show you an example of something that I think might answer your question. And that's the latest two-part print that I've been doing. I wouldn't say that the backside is necessarily useful, but these are examples of printing the first portion that's holographic, starting a second print and using that first fabric that has the holographic pattern on it to be flipped up. So this has both holographic and three-dimensional factors. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I followed. Can you?
So
you do it as two prints?
The holographic effect is only imprinted on the bottom portion of that.
Mm-hmm.
the side that's touching the holographic build plate.
Mm-hmm.
I printed the inner circle where we have two sets of circles. We'll call it like an inner cloister and an outer cloister. That holographic portion is one separate print. So it did not print the other three-dimensional parts. That was a separate print. So printed the holographic, started a new print, which are these three-dimensional portions.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of using a new piece of fabric with nothing on it, I used the same piece of fabric that I had just printed that has the holographic sets on it.
Oh,
right.
Okay, there you go.
So,
yeah.
Do you everything's below? You don't have to worry about, or do you have to add a Z lift or Z hop or anything like that?
That's so with the first layer, if it's 3 layers tall, that's 0.72. The pause starts at layer 2. Then with this, it's augmented to layer 3 to account for the thickness of the holographic layer.
Wow.
Does that, so there is still no offset. It's just a matter of, as long as the nozzle is still above the previous holographic layer, then there's no intrusion with it. So if this was, I think, one of my funnest ones, the largest ones, you might be able to see that a little bit easier. The circles are one print and the squares are another.
Nice.
Where the circles are holographic. And then this I printed with a rainbow gradient glow in the dark. So it's like blue on the outside edge, and then it goes into pink on the inside. So did that answer your question, Anna? Because generally the mesh side is, rather not the mesh side, the holographic side is very soft. So if I, like this mask, for example, I printed this on, or rather my other ones, I think I printed on the holographic finish, so it would be much softer on the inside rather than the textured bed, the PEI sheet. So it's just a matter, generally I add linings to all of my things, so that texture isn't going to be a problem. But there are things like the bracelets and some of the chokers that I make that I have to do a little bit of sanding on that back layer because it's just a little bit
right on your skin.
rough. Yeah. So, right. Any other questions that were on there? I thought I saw one other something on there.
There's an idea about your fan about adding structural integrity by adding sticks.
Oh, so that was the hope, is to then create a secondary print that would be able to be attached or inserted to the base or the structure of this. So whether it's like the majority of the fan is 0.72, and then on this inside portion, there's a little, square peg or something that the fan legs can stick into. I haven't gotten that far, but yes, the structural, when I added the secondary break in this, I wanted to see how that, played with it. So, eventually, if I added 100 breaks in here, that would be just drooping all over. And then, I got to do that now to figure out how that looks on the top side. Absolutely. Or with all those different colors incorporated.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like a good time to put this quote up, which is Bearded Printer saying, "You are a mad scientist."
And I'm running out of room in this workshop, so I'm expanding my other one. I'm going to have another, I think, 360 square feet, 15 seconds away, where I can move all of this stuff and get I have an industrial sewing machine in the corner, my serger. I want to incorporate, have an area for sewing production and have an area for printing. I'm just overwhelmed with all the things that I have to do right now on my plate.
It's a great feeling, though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Layer by layer, is the filament sticking to the fabric or to the filament that oozes through? Great question. It is sticking to the fabric or the filament that is already printed. So if you start with fabric on the build plate, you will fail. It will go all over the place. If you have a Variable Seams is another creator, and she's done some prints on some cotton shirts, I believe, and some felt. What happens when you print directly onto materials instead of having a layer to be able to extrude through. So in all of my experimenting, it's imperative to have that first layer. To have that. It's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Or I do peanut butter and marshmallow fluff.
So good. I haven't had one of those in 20 years. I had one of my construction jobs. She would every lunch, she would make me a peanut butter and marshmallow fluff sandwich. And I remember some days I would go work there just because I wanted the sandwich.
However you can get your motivation, man. That's a sport.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There, I seemed like there was one more thing. I know we're wrapping up on time, and you had mentioned the origami. That was do I have time to show one more thing?
Please, yes.
Because that's part of the. I know I mentioned earlier with the coffee, with the being like raffling things off. So we have the things that are going to be raffled off this month.
Okay.
So if you remember, you spend $5 a month. That's the first tier of things, and we've got some of. These are the examples. This is one of my personal favorite things that I printed. This is the Octagon Party Favor box.
I saw that on the Facebook.
Yeah, the origami thing. So it opens up. This is purple and gold filament on a Skynet sheet. This is the first origami thing that I made. And it just folds up. So we take these petals. Let's see if I can do this backwards. And nope, I can't. And we fold it up, and then it just stays closed like that. So each individual one can fit inside of itself. So it's like a nesting box. And these you can keep little candies in, or jewelry, or all sorts of stuff. So for the winners, I think we're going to give away maybe 5 of these this month. And so we've got that. And then the next level... we already have one of those magnetic clutches. So any color of houndstooth hat.
Nice.
These retail, these are $65. And these are all hand sewn, handmade by me. And then this is one of the clutch examples that's ready to go. Again, that $10 a month member to support me, what I'm doing, and hopefully be able to kind of empty out my shelves of some things that I'm not hoarding. But, it's difficult for me to give away, because they're so shiny and so pretty. And then this is the Primo one that I'm giving away. This is a one of a kind. This is the new style of clutch. So it has it's a 5-kiss clutch closure. I love that, the name of that, 5-inch kiss clutch closure. So it opens up like this, and then there's 5 different screws. So the goal for using this is that these are then interchangeable. So you can have a different purse if you want to have a different color. You can just take out a couple screws, pop in the one that you want, or maybe you want the one that's longer or a little bit wider. I've got this example here, I think.
Just like your beanie with the snaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, somebody mentioned earlier, like being Batman and in my like the accessory pouch type of thing. So this is the small version, and then this is the big type of version. So it's the same hardware. Same hardware. You can just swap it out. So this is for the premium, the extra supporters. So jumping on that, if you want to join, awesome. You could win some stuff. And generally, I don't post this stuff because I don't have time to. So I'm hoping to make that a change. And just continue on making all the pretty things. So
I have been putting some links in the chat as you've talked with your Ko-Fi site and yours, a few of the Thangs models as well that you have available.
Fabulous. Well, I've appreciated just all the fun time and interactions we've had tonight. Great questions.
Yeah.
We do have, sorry, another Anna question. If you've ever, have you experimented with ironing?
Wonder if you ironed it after printing onto fabric directly. Like iron. So I've used interfacing before. I've used 3 different types of interfacing, and so I've printed onto interfacing, and then I've ironed the print onto another piece of fabric. It worked okay, but it was also my first time working with interfacing, and I was a little scared of it. So I think that's what she's referring to, of using interfacing to iron something on directly.
I think this was came up when you were talking about you have to do that first layer first before the fabric. So
Oh,
maybe
ironed it like in the slicer. Is that sorry?
I maybe would get
Wonder if
some.
you
I
ironed
was
it
almost
after
thinking
printing.
like she was thinking you printed it and then ironed it on, but there's a lot of ways to interpret that.
Yeah, I would say I don't iron top surfaces. If that is the question with the bamboo slicer, and I have not used an iron with anything else other than interfacing. So I guess that will
should
answer it
cover
with
the
an omission.
bases.
Maybe I think, but I am again interested in some of the post processing adhesives that are. I just don't want to use anything that's toxic, like a whole bunch of just crap that we're putting out again.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be mindful. Somebody's like, "Oh, just use super glue on your skin." I'm like, I'm not putting super glue on my skin to put something on for a rave. There's no way.
Yeah.
That's not happening. So there was one more question about HueForge, I think. That
oh, nice. Okay.
And I haven't used HueForge, but seeing that comment makes me want to.
HueForge logo.
Oh, fabulous! It's amazing what people can do. So it's I'm with lithophanes. Even my mind was blown with like a color lithophane using CMYK. Yeah. What? That's incredible. Yeah. So it's a lot of stuff. Yeah, HueForge I want to get into. I just got Clo 3D, which is another garment design app to make 3D garments in real time and convert them into digital flat patterns. So
Clo 3D. Oh.
Yeah, Clo 3D, CLO 3D. It's amazing. It is scratch. I mean, it's every night I'm trying to watch like a 15-minute YouTube tutorial on it. So you can create your avatar and you can put in the exact measurements of that avatar.
Uh-huh.
And then based on what clothing you're making, it will adjust all the parameters and make it fit however you want to and add all of your sew lines. It'll show you every attachment point, how it needs to be. It's really awesome. So yeah, Clo 3D, absolutely. That's another subscription service like Shaper 3D I pay $2.99 a year for.
Uh-huh.
That's a subscription that I would pay any day of the week. It is so worthwhile. But in the beginning, it was a lot. So, I mean, we're talking 2 years ago when I first started, that was like a whole month's income of selling drag, all the things. It's like, gosh, do I really want to invest in that? So the 3D scanner, when that came along, I thought, gosh, that has to be in my tool house. It has to be accessible.
Right.
So, and it's come in handy quite a few times. So I'm working on a project tomorrow that's going to be scanning and 3D printing something for a little TV show. So it'll be a fun, exciting things in the works. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, Daniel, when you are in the East, when you're on the East Coast, I think that everybody over here will fight over who gets to hang out with you. So, let us know when you're coming, if it's ever an offing.
And there are quite a few little 3D conventions out there that I definitely need to.
What you might really like is 3D Printopia.
You really would like that.
And when is that?
We haven't announced the dates yet, but we are looking at the same kind of September timeframe as previous years.
Okay, fabulous. Well, I'm looking at one in Amsterdam, I think in May, and then I think there's Loveland, Colorado. Loveland,
the Rocky
May 18th, the Rocky Mountain.
Okay.
My brother lives over in Colorado Springs, so I'm hoping to do a little visit down there, and then drive up there for the convention and hop on a plane to Amsterdam and see what happens. So
awesome.
There's another creative little conference over there, really gearing towards like influencers and social media and those kind of the questions that we might have and the burnouts that we have and the creative blocks, all of that stuff.
And also don't forget about Maker Faire.
And Maker Faire, what is Maker Faire? Where is Maker
Faire?
Oh,
there's Maker Fairs all over, but this particular commenter is the Orange County Maker Faire, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I've been to a handful. We've been to a couple of Maker Fairs, and it was a ton of fun to see. That's where I really loved interacting with all the people. I mean, they'd ask so many good questions, and I'd have the 3D printer there. We'd be doing something actively, something that I had just scanned and printed a miniature one of. It was a blast.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'd love to. So Jeff Sprint says he has so many things to try from this episode.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you want to try printing? Do you have anything that's like right off the top of your head, or because there's so many different avenues that you can go down?
Yeah.
And yeah, and they only take a couple of hours, so it's not like you're waiting for a 30-hour print. A big mat or a big helmet or something that's it takes a kilogram of filament. My prints usually take 20 grams. So
Really? Wow.
one roll goes a long way. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
So,
well, you can invest in the colors then.
What's that?
And then you can invest in all the colors because you don't shred through them, making big dragons. So yeah.
Yeah, I gotta have you peek in my little. I just got this all set up too, and with my little extenda.
Whoa!
So I have my filament room, and this was my original studio area. So now I've got my piano in the back. It was like a little piano room. So now I have these great filament storage racks, and I just run a big heavy duty dehumidifier in the corner.
Yeah.
It keeps this 20% humidity and around 85 degrees. So I just come in here and I've got the tricolors and everything sorted, all bamboo, amylin. It's just a joy to have this my little filament room. So yeah, everyone, it adds up, and then you only use 20 grams of it, and you've got a lot left. So projects galore start happening.
Awesome.
Okay, well I know it's getting late.
On us, the East Coast.
Daniel inspired me to really go down the 3D printing road and purchase my first 3D printer. Awesome. That's my favorite comment when I get people saying I was the inspiration to get a printer. That's like getting your first car, and you're out. You're gonna be driving. You're gonna be out there, and it's just fabulous. Jeff said a filament seller.
Yep, that's
okay.
Like a wine cellar.
Okay.
That's awesome.
You'd have to have a pretty big printer for that. That's great. Way too organized. Yes. Wait until you see the other side of the room that I kind of shoved everything into. So, okay. Well, we'll wish you a wonderful evening. Unless you had other questions.
Yeah. No, I just want to say to you, Daniel, that at the beginning of the episode, you were talking about how you need to put Lawrence's introduction as your alarm clock. Well, you may also, if you're ever like having a down day, maybe come back to this video and just scroll through the chat, because like we have people that are inspired by you, people who love the way your brain works, multiple comments on your workspace.
Awesome.
Yeah, just a lot of positive feedback tonight for you.
So this, and I'm new to the YouTube video. So this YouTube will stay on YouTube on your channel.
Yeah.
And these comments will stay there too.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can take 24 hours before the comments are available on YouTube.
Yeah.
But they'll be there.
Cool. Yeah, it's hard. I'd love to reread through some of the comments. It's hard to keep track of everything that's going on.
Absolutely.
So when is the next Prime Day?
All right. Thank you for the segue, Daniel. So How Would You Slice That is live on Tuesdays that are prime numbers. And the next one is going to be in 1 month on March 11th, 2025. So that's Tech Cheaper was saying he has a hard time keeping up with the schedule, but here we go. March 11th. We hope to see you all back here. Daniel, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and all of your creations and your techniques. And I think Daniel knows this, but when David Shorey was printing on fabric, I went and bought some tulle on March of 2018, and it sat in my office until we were preparing for this episode. And now look, I've actually used my tulle that I bought.
And I didn't get to see yours, so you just did it on a textured plate. And where did you make your design? Did you get that from an already done STL file?
No, I just took a image.
Just a PNG or a TGA?
What did I do? I think I took an image and I converted it to a scalable vector graphic, and then I brought it into Blender and did it on. Oh, but I have aspirations. I'm not much of a sewer, but I want to make myself like a little handbag. So just like what you're saying with the negative modifiers, I already have like my little shape, but I was struggling with how to do my seam allowances, and this episode showed me what I need to do.
Great. And with a invisible or with a zipper foot, you can get right up to the side of it. So I have a couple of videos on my YouTube as well of how, me actually sewing things.
Yeah, I think the clutch that you showed that's on your Ko-Fi raffle.
Yes,
I think
yes.
You used a zipper foot to sew that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that was, I only have 3 other feet that I know how to use, but that's a pretty important one. So, and one last question for you: what is TGA? W3. Somebody made a comment of if you weren't in the 3D realm, you wouldn't know what that is, and I'm like, TGA. It sounds like a PNG or SVG. Or
oh, okay.
So what?
Listen, everybody. This came when I was a little kid. Remember, little kids, like maybe they're not conscious of things sounding arrogant or whatnot. But when I was young, my cousin and we used to write letters back and forth. That's how old I am. Like we wrote like physical letters. And he started calling himself Adam the Great and Best. And I wanted to be cool too, but I couldn't be great and best because he already had that. So I was Vicky the Great and Wonderful. And then over years, like you're handwriting these things, you start to abbreviate. So he was TGAB and I was TGAW. And it's usually a very easy handle to find when you first get on like X or Blue Sky or Instagram. It's usually available. And I've had the tgaw.com domain since something like 1996 or so.
Awesome.
But remember, as a little kid when I started calling myself that.
Well, absolutely, but where is the connection with the 3D printing world of the TGA? Because somebody had said in the comments of if you weren't in the 3D printing world, you wouldn't know what TGA meant or TGA 3D meant or something. And I'm like, gosh, I don't, that must be an older one of a different format that was used, or I'm not sure. So if you don't know the answer, then that was way over my head.
Well, I have a hypothesis, but again, I don't want to sound arrogant. It could be an indication of like that I've been around in the community a while, maybe. So
okay.
I'm guessing, but again,
okay, great.
And that's not a little kid guessing. That's me. So
no,
that's fabulous.
The only reason I know is because I asked Vicky a very long time ago when I met her at Nova Labs. So yeah.
And now I know, and now everybody else knows. So
yes.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, well, March 11th it is. I can't wait to be a part of the Peanut Gallery, and thank you again for having me. It was just a delight.
Yes, thank you. Everybody, thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Happy making.
See you.
Have a good night.